Robian Charles, and I serve on the Heman Sweatt Planning Committee. And on behalf of the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement, I welcome you to sitting at the knees of our elders. Just to give you a little background about why we have this very special event, as a part of the 24th Annual Heman Sweatt Symposium, I want to share some words with you. Does anyone know what a tradition bearer is? Have you heard that term before? I see some head shaking. Well, a tradition bearer can be anyone, young or old, who has knowledge, skills, and experience to share. For example, a third grader who knows the hand clapping games shared among school children on the playground. A family member who knows about the special foods that are always prepared for holiday celebrations. Or a neighbor who has lived in your community for many years and can tell you everything you need to know or may not want to know about the local history and the ways of life. Well, according to African custom, elders in the community are learned, and their teachings are held in high regard and esteem by all. This high regard for the teachings of the elders is inculcated in the youth from a very young age. They are exposed to the wisdom of the elders through storytelling, a well-established practice in the African villages and African communities. It is commonplace for young and old to gather around a fire at a central spot to listen to the stories, the intimate stories from the elders, grandmothers and grandfathers, grandnieces and granduncles of that community. Well, welcome to our community today, and I am very pleased to introduce to you our very own tradition bearers. First, we have Miss Thelma Miller Bowles. She's right here. Then we have Mr. Nathaniel Bradford. Mrs. Peggy Holland. Mr. Emmanuel McKinney. And Mrs. Eva Goins Simmons. Now, the format for this is very informal. Not too much like a panel discussion. Rather, I'm going to ask some questions just to prompt the conversation, and they're going to answer the questions. So it's going to be a very organic type process. After the questioning is over on my part and the storytelling is done, we will open it up to you or for you to ask questions of them as well. Thank you again for joining us. Okay, so let's get started. Where are you from? Who's from Austin? Anyone from Austin, or are you from other places? Where were you born?
I'm from Austin. I attended Anderson High School. I actually wanted to attend Austin High, but my mom said, "Why do you think they built Anderson?" So I went to Anderson. And after Anderson, I went into the Army because my college fund had been set aside at the time. And so when I got out of the Army, she asked me, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to Purview." And she said, "Why do you think they built UT?" What is this? So as far as coming to UT, it wasn't my idea. It was her idea because since I'd been away for 3 years, she missed her son.
Question again?
Where are you from? Are you from Austin, from somewhere else?
I'm Thelma Bowles, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I now reside in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Let's see. I come from a family of teachers. My father was a coach at the all-black high school at that time, Phyllis Wheatley, in San Antonio. My mother taught when she was young and gave it up and became, a mom. All of my brothers and sisters are college grads, so, I'm the youngest, so it was just understood that I would be going to college. I decided I would come to UT. It impressed me. It had nothing to do with wanting to desegregate it because I'd gone to an integrated high school. And so this was not necessarily a new experience to me as far as being in a multicultural situation. And coming from San Antonio, that's very multicultural in itself, right? You know. I became an English teacher. I taught here, I taught in San Antonio for 4.5 years, married, went to Germany, moved around for 9 times in 10 years. And then, you know, we finally settled in the Washington area. And there I taught for 25.5 years, English, 8th grade, 13-year-olds, and I survived. And actually, I loved every minute of it. And I'm still involved in the Fairfax County public school system. I teach SAT courses. I hold workshops for seniors, high school seniors, and I teach them how to write their applications to colleges. I love my life. My daughter is right there in the green dress, Tracy. I have 2 older sons who are back in Virginia. And there's so much more I could say, but it will all come out later. I'll pass this on.
I'm Peggy Drake Holland. I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I have also lived in Hondo, Texas. Probably you might not know that, but where that is. But it's the home of my parents. I came to the university because I received a scholarship because I was valedictorian of my graduating class at Phyllis Wheatley High School. Also because it was near San Antonio, and it's a state institution, and the tuition was reasonable for later. I married afterwards. I taught for a short time after I graduated, and I worked for the Housing Authority, and also then after that teaching stint, I married. That's right. That is an important part. We left immediately. I married this young man that I have known since high school, and we traveled around the world together, and mostly we were abroad the first part of our marriage. And I have a daughter too sitting next to Tracy, Thelma's daughter. And let's see, we came back here after my husband retired 30 years, and then I continued my volunteering. I'm with the American Association of University Women and others as well. I think that's enough.
I am Emmanuel McKinney. I'm a native of Houston, but because of the type of symposium this is, I will just mention that I lost my mother at a very young age, the age of 4, and my parents were natives of Selma, Alabama. And so I went back to Selma and actually attended school there up through the 9th grade. And by that time, grandmother wanted me to be at home by sundown, and so I thought it was time to return to Houston. And so I graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, just in case there is anyone in the audience from Houston who might be a Booker T. Washington graduate. And I wanted to major in chemical engineering. And there was no school other than UT that I was familiar with that offered that degree. And I also wanted to fly, and I wanted a school with an Air Force ROTC program. And that's what led me here. And so I did come. I did not finish in chemical engineering, but I did in mathematics, and had a desire to fly, but when my eyes failed me, then that finish that, and so I, after serving a short time, 3 years in the Air Force, married, moved to Fort Worth, Texas, and actually, even though I made a career with a company known as IBM, a lot of you think that stands for International Business Machines, but that used to stand for I've been moved. but I managed to make a career there and really stay in that area and never moved. And after I am married, have one wife, two daughters, one of whom is married and has 3 boys, and the oldest one was here just I think a couple of weeks or so ago, touring, because he is 16 and is a 10th grader and was making one of the rounds, and his comment was, "It is big." He did a lot of walking. So other things will come out. I will pass it to Eva.
Thank you. My name is Eva Simmons. I was born in Somerville, Texas, which is near Brenham, which is near Houston. After my dad died, my mother moved to Austin because she needed to find work. You know, back in those days, the moms did not work. But when the daddy is dead, the mom has to work and provide for the family. There were only 2 of us, my sister and I. So essentially, except for the 2 primary grades in Somerville, Texas, all of my education was acquired right here in Austin. After graduating from UT, I did move to Las Vegas, Nevada to rejoin my family there. And I have spent 45 years in education and 1 year in social work. 37 years in the public schools and 8 at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I only retired a year ago, except I'm not really, because I administer a Read and Rise program in the public schools for my sorority. So I am very busy with a lot of things, and I enjoy the things that I do still. I too met my husband here at UT, my one husband that I'm still married to, and I still like him too. And I'm very honored that our 2 children were able to join me here for this weekend. My husband doesn't like to fly, so he's home golfing, and I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I see a theme here, so I have to just jump in and say I'm married and I have one husband as well. But in all seriousness, tell us about or share with us what it was like, your first day. You get to UT. What does that look like?
First of all, my son would never forgive me because I omitted him. I have a son who is grown up and lives on the West Coast. Now, my first
Thank you.
My first day here is very difficult for me to look back and think. It was awe-inspiring in that it was such a large place, but other than that, that's about all I can say about it. I really can't.
Well, my first day actually started before my first day, when I received a rush letter, and I took it to my brother and I told him, "Look, man, I'm being asked to attend this fraternity." And he says, "No, you're not." And he explained to me why I was not being invited to Rushmore. But my first day, I stepped on campus, and a young lady grabbed me by the hand and took me to the 3rd floor of the Student Union building, which was probably the worst thing to ever happen to me, because they were playing bid whist. And I think probably 40% of the next 4 or 5 years were spent on the 3rd floor playing bid whist. But I also should mention that I do have one wife and 2 kids. My son lives in Boston. My daughter lives in Houston.
I do remember my first day. My parents drove me here, and I was 16 years old. I was the baby of the family. And I didn't want them to leave me. I remember that quite well, and I remember Miss Morse telling me, maybe they have to go home. But I wanted to be here, but I didn't want them to go. One of the reasons I believe I chose this was because it was close to home. My brother attended, my oldest brother attended Texas College in Tyler. Does it still exist? Yes. Okay, I've been away for a while, over 40 years. My father had attended Wiley College, and where he majored in English and physical education. He was a coach. Strange convention, but he did. And my mother had attended Prairie View. My other brother had attended Wiley College, and my sister attended Wiley College. And I kind of broke the mold and came to UT, this huge university. But not because just to break the mold. I had passed by it, and I thought it was, wow, that looks great. You know, I want to go there. And it was close, it was inexpensive, and I read about their program, and so that's why I came here. I was impressed. I was very impressed. And then when they escorted me to this little white house, Almetris, and told me that's where I would be living, I think I had imagined living in this huge dorm, you know, at some time. And they told me, well, this is the housing for black women on this campus. And I had attended an integrated high school, you know, and so this was something that was like going backwards to me. But that was just my first experience. I won't take up too much time. That's too much I could talk about that. I'm going to pass this to whoever would like to have it.
I too was only 16 and came to UT. I remember standing in a line, long line to check into the dormitory. I want to say this was kind of like seemed like a Sunday afternoon, but it may not have been a Sunday. Since school starts on Monday, usually it may have been a Sunday. And one of the things that I remember, of course, was that shortly ahead of me was another African-American student. For those precursors, it was Manuel Wilson. And so standing in line, my parents were with me, and so they could hold the place, so to speak, and we got acquainted, and of course we remained best of friends throughout college and still keep in contact. But once I finished the check-in process and everything, I was escorted, so to speak, or told where to go as far as the dormitory was concerned, and that was probably the first disappointment. In those days, it was the one I checked into was a two-story, kind of a wooden frame building that had a community bathroom and a shower and, you know, all of that. And just wasn't really what I was accustomed to, and I am by no means from what you would call, way up the line atmosphere as far as economics and all of that go. And so, but as I mentioned, I wanted to come here, and the reason I wanted to come here not only was because of my major and the desire to go through the ROTC program, but I thought that really in order to major in something that I thought would make some money, chemical engineering, and this was the only place, then this is where I should be. And there was the only school, quite frankly, in Texas that I knew where I could get this degree. What I did not know at the time was that there were other schools. Of course, they were segregated. And what I did not realize at the time was that in order to keep black students out of the public institutions here, all of them really, quite frankly, except for those that were designated for black students, was that if I had declared my major to be chemical engineering and could not come to the University of Texas, then the state would pay for me to go somewhere else, to another school in another state that offered that degree, because there was no black school of higher learning that offered that degree here in Texas. If I had known that, I may have taken them up on that. But as after checking in, my parents finally decided to go after getting my room all fixed up and everything. And of course, met the other people in the dorm, and it was a disappointment, but other than that, quite frankly, I learned later, I guess, that I was privileged. I had a single room in the corner. Okay, and I think there were two single rooms, as I recall. Yes, two on that floor, the second floor where I was, and so I met the other people, the other students, and really made some friendships that have been key and have been maintained throughout the years.
Well, I have a surprise for you. I didn't want to come here. I was pressured by my teachers, actually, because they felt in 1956 that it was important for black students to take that test, pass that test, go to UT, and graduate. And of course, my mother wanted me to stay at home. And so I took the test, I passed the test, and I graduated. As a matter of fact, I had a full ride scholarship to Langston University in Oklahoma, and that's where I wanted to go. But it didn't work out that way, and it's fine. As I said, I met my husband here. I have wonderful, long-standing friends as a result of attending here, and I had the best of both worlds here because this was home, so I knew how to get around. I knew how to ride public transportation. I had friends of my mother's in the city who catered to me and gave me a lot of support. After my first year, my family moved to Las Vegas, and I with them because we had a little preemie baby girl born in the family, and we went to visit, and my mother could not leave that pitiful little baby, so I was stuck. But I went to work in Las Vegas, and I saved my money in the back corner of the closet in this little glass jar. I was making $6 a shift at a casino in Las Vegas, working in the cage, clerical types of stuff. And there came a time after 2 years when I announced to my mother that I was going home to go back to college. And of course, she tried to handle it tactfully. I tried to handle it tactfully. And it just wasn't working out. But I was determined to do that. And I did. I rode that Greyhound bus all of those 23 hours from Las Vegas back to Austin. I stayed with my godmother who lived in the city. And another friend of our family's approached me and said, now you know that's not going to work out. Mrs. Lynch isn't going to let you breathe unless she says so. And college is a place that you go to and you learn to be on your own. You know, you learn to meet people and navigate all of the stuff that you have to navigate. She said, I am going to get some of these women to provide monies every month so you can live in the dorm. That was Mildred Holloway. And she did. And so there I was on the porch at Almitra's Co-op watching these young people come from San Antonio and Houston and all of these places. And you know, I'm older now. I'm 3 years older than these freshman people who were coming here. I probably felt a little superior to them too. I'm not sure. But I had my little money. I had enough for my tuition for the first semester and my books. And I just knew I was going to find a job and be okay. That's exactly what I did too. And I think I have come to know myself as one who enjoys responding to a challenge. But I must confess, on that bus, I cried all the way from Las Vegas to Austin because for the first time, I had defied my mom. But in later years, she and I were having a conversation, and she let me know that for my life, I had made the right decision.
So your precursors, I have one. I'll get that. Your precursors, and so you were among the first to integrate the University of Texas at Austin. Share with us, and I've heard some of it in terms of disappointments that you experienced when you first got here to campus, that first day or those first couple of days. But share with us some of the challenges and barriers that you experienced being among the first.
He was here before.
And share with us when you were here as well. Thank you.
I entered the University of Texas in September of 1957. The first year that it was desegregated for undergraduates was 1956. And of course, like any young person, movies, that's a great thing. That's a lot of what you plan to do. On the drag, when I first thought about going to the movie On the Drag, no. That was one thing. Of course, the dormitory, as I mentioned, was a little bit of quite a bit of a disappointment. Actually, though, as far as focusing on the academics, I really did not experience any thing that I would call prejudice or anything in the classes as such in those earlier years. About the most important thing that I remember, it was challenging, a little bit scary, but during the orientation, I'm in chemical engineering school, and I'm at an orientation, several hundred students, and the facilitator says, look to your left, look to your right. 3 of those 4 students won't graduate. And
It's encouraging.
encouraging, isn't it? And so I was determined from that experience that I would not be one who did not. Now, I did not take that and focus as much as I should have. The first 3 years, I too majored in bid whiz. Okay. But I'm going to share this because Leon told me that I should share this on one occasion. 1960, I had been here for 3 years now. I changed my major to mathematics. And there was another young African-American student who came in the year of 1960. And that student, as I heard it and understand it, okay, made the first 30 hours or so just on advanced placement exams. And when I met him and really understood what he was doing, I decided right then and there that I would not let him start 3 years after me and finish before me. the last year and a half, I was a serious student. Okay, even made the whatever dean's kind of dean list is that last semester. Okay, taking 15 hours with all of that stuff, and so consequently, I was determined. But he motivated me to get out, and you will later hear from him later to this evening, I believe. Yes. Other than that, though, the normal things, only 2 places to eat on campus, one in the student union and one at a designated cafeteria. Those places were closed, for example, on Sunday evenings, so no place to eat. Okay, I mean, we had to make our own arrangements, and because I was relatively young, my parents would come up on a lot of weekends, and for some of those who remember, my mom would bring enough food to feed the entire dormitory. So, and she would come up after, they would come up, my father would drive, and she would come up with big pots of food and feed us on Sunday, and would feed entire Dorm F, I'm sorry, I was in Dorm F. And so those are just some of the things that I recall.
My first memory after all this pressure from my mother and my teachers and my church family and all those folk to go and take that test, I remember sitting in the floor of our apartment in the Rosewood Public Housing Projects, which is where we lived. I've already told you my dad died, and so, you know, we were probably poor too. I never thought about that until the war on poverty days. Poor, deprived, latchkey, all of that. Didn't matter. But I remember sitting in the floor with my Corona typewriter, filling out the application to come to UT. The other memory that I have very distinctly in my mind is I started out and headed toward physical therapy. That's really what I thought I wanted to do. But when I learned that after completing 3 years here, I'd have to go to med school, take some more schooling, and then I'd have some more tests to pass and whatever, I went through the book to see what I could match up with all this science and stuff I had been taking. Turned out to be PE. So I switched my major to PE. But then I had to take and pass this survival swimming course. Now you know what happens when you swim. And I had lots of hair then. It was a mess. But anyway, I passed that swimming test because I didn't want to have to repeat that. But what I want to share with you about that PE curriculum is I decided to go the education route because the coursework was so similar. And then I would have a way to earn money, to save money, to go to physical therapy school. So I had to write lesson plans. The first lesson plan that I wrote, I had never written a lesson plan in my life. And I let everybody go before I presented my lesson because I wanted to see how it went. Now, you know there was only one brown spot in the class, right? That was me. And the teacher and she was constructive. She was not being mean-spirited or anything, but she could not find one complimentary thing to say about my lesson plan. Well, how was I supposed to know how to make a lesson plan? She just said, make one and be prepared to present on your day. And I was absolutely crushed. My feelings were hurt, I was embarrassed, and so on. And there was this little girl in the class with me whose name was Gail Schlesserman. I've lost track of her over the years. But she says, come on, I'll give you lots of examples of lesson plans. We have a whole file in our sorority house. So that was another part of my education. And needless to say, Gail and I became great friends because I wanted access to what she had.
Well, the atmosphere for me was a little different. I was in the College of Business, and it's not exactly fine arts. When, let's see, first of all, I was 18. I came here in 58. Let me get myself together here. I know the atmosphere was rather hostile, not at all welcoming, as I've said before, elsewhere. The people did not respond to me very well. I expected this of the students, but I actually had more problems with the instructors. They were intent on getting me out of there. I do, of course. I had an instructor once who told us that our grade, the major part of our grade, would consist of our discussions in class. And he had to call on you to discuss. Well, he never called on me. Then I had a class where I took a test, and there was one girl that I studied with that I knew from San Antonio. And by studying together, we had similar answers, and afterwards we went over the tests. And I had a much lower grade than she did. So I decided that I would go to the office of the teacher and talk to him. And they told me in the office that he had gone to South America, when plainly I could see him sitting in his office at his desk through the door. Let me see what else. I had so many of these. I even jotted some of them down. But some students would walk, and I gathered by their physique they were football players, although I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't be having preconceived opinions even then. But they would bump right into me, knock the books out of my hands, things like that. They chose not to sit next to me, so if I got there before they did, they wouldn't sit any place near me. If I got there and there was a seat vacant and the other people had filled in the rest, they would get up and move someplace else. But I still say I expected some of this. But I was very disappointed in the faculty members from whom I had classes, most of them, because I felt that with their age and time teaching children or young adults, and in an institution of higher education, I felt that they were too provincial and mean-spirited. But on the other hand, I had some outstanding instructors who were very humane and fair. And one even went so far as to protect me on a trip. I'm not mentioning any classes nor any names, but he picked me up at Almitras Co-op to make sure that I got on the bus safely. And we went to Houston to a conference, and he saw me back afterwards. When we got back to Austin, he picked me up, from the bus stop and brought me back to Almitras. But he was more frightened than I was. And let me see if I can think of some of these other things. I guess when I got ready to graduate, of course, I had problems with some of those grades I had and grade points. So one day I was walking across campus to a class, and this young man ran up and asked me if I were Peggy Drake. And I said, yes. And he said, well, this doctor, who happened to be the head of a department there and from whom I'd had a class, wants to see you. So I went in and talked to this doctor, and he asked me how things were going for me, and I told him. He says, when do you graduate? And I told him what had happened, and he said, well, I know that you are a good student, and there's just something wrong here. And he said, I think I know what it is. So he said, I have a friend, another doctor, who is coming in from Syracuse, New York. I want you to take I feel that he is a fair person. I want you to take this class from him. And that's all I needed. So I took this class, and with that, I got a good grade that I worked for, I must say. And I graduated. So there are some good people still in the world. My faith in humanity was restored with that act. And I guess I had one other person, but I'll let somebody else talk.
Growing up in Austin was rather easy for me to enter UT because when we were kids, before the Ex-Students Association building was created, we spent a lot of time in the creek. So I was all over the campus. I mean, we rode the Mustangs over here at the museum. So being familiar with UT's campus, I was very. But when I started to college, I knew that I wanted to major in mathematics, had no idea what I should minor in. But after having played cards the first day and then I made it to my first class, I was going to be a very serious student, so I went in, sat in the middle row of the middle seat of the front row next to some white guy. And he looked at me, and he got up and moved to the back of the room. And about 2 minutes later comes this beautiful red-haired girl. So I looked at him, I looked at her, and then I looked at him. I said, so at that point, I thought, minoring in English might not be a bad deal, which I did. But one of the more interesting experiences I had was in a sociology class, and we began to discuss racial issues. And this was a relatively young guy, I guess he was maybe 30 or so. And as we were talking about racial matters and racial issues, he said, some of my best friends are. And he caught himself and said, he never finished the question. He never finished the statement. So that's the way it kind of was. But I never had any bad experiences in the classroom. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kowalik, who was at Texas A&I University, was probably the most helpful instructor in the math department that I had.
Fortunately, I was in the English department. You find some very humane people in the English department. Yes. However, I'm one who always liked to recite and compete, and I really love literature, and I guess I memorized, my daughter can tell you, I go around the house and she says, oh, God, no. Just reciting different excerpts from different pieces of literature. Well, a speech contest came about in the speech department, and I decided I wanted to compete. And I did so. And I selected Gangadin, Rudyard Kipling. And I memorized it, but they insisted that it was supposed to be a reading, so I decided to read instead. I had to read it. I pretended to read it, but I actually knew it by heart. And I competed in that, and it went quite well. And I could tell from the expression on the judges' faces that they felt so too, and that even the contestants. So when it was all over, they handed out the awards, and they told me that, they announced that a girl who recited Amy Lowell's Patterns had won first place. And I was awarded second place, which was, that was all right. But I really thought I nailed that. I didn't think she really deserved it, honestly, And as it went on, and I was going to leave, I congratulated the first place winner, and she came over. One of the judges came up to me afterwards, and she said, "Excuse me, Thelma," and I said, "Yes." And she said, you know what? We wanted to give you first place, but we just couldn't give it to a black student. She actually told me that face to face. And I said, what could I say but thank you, and I left. I was very disappointed, but I didn't have too many disappointments with the English department. I won't mention some of the, because some of the professors and some of the different things we're going to talk about, because I'm speaking later on tonight, and I don't want to tell it. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but if you're coming tonight, you might hear some of what I'm saying already. But anyway, there were some good experiences there. I knew some of the kids, some of the white kids I'd gone to high school with in Brackenridge. They were there, and they became friends. One of them was in my wedding, actually. So it was a pretty good experience, except for some of the broader things that we had to fight, like the sit-ins and going to consolving and sitting in the dormitories and things like that. But personally, I remember the friendships that I made with the people in Almetris, and a few of the guys chose to talk to me, and things like that. But I can't think of too many negatives, except just how bad it was on a broad basis, and how much we still have to work with desegregating the various, places around the campus. But that one stayed in my mind for a long time.
And so resilience, definitely what comes to mind, oh, that's okay. What comes to mind is that you were resilient during this period or during your time here at UT Austin when you did encounter those experiences. And based on what you've shared so far, I'm going to draw a conclusion and say that that resilience could be attributed to the community that you built amongst yourselves. I've heard Almetris Duran's name mentioned. I heard the name of Morris, some other names mentioned about parents, family who brought food to compensate for only having 2 places to eat. Can you talk about that community and what that looks like, and just to elaborate on the question a little, or look like for you, elaborate on the question a little bit more? I think it's rather befitting that we're in Almetris Duran Residence Hall. And so if you would share also whether or not you knew Mama Duran and the impact that she had on your life.
Oh, she was a wonderful person. You couldn't have had a sweeter person to be your house mother. She was welcoming to the young men who came in because she knew where they were living. They were always welcome. I'm sure they can attest to that. If you had any kind of problems, you could always talk with her. And it was very much of a homey type feeling. We all lived in Almetris. They lived on the porch, and I lived right next to the porch. Yeah, the 2 ladies here. I entered in 1959. I think everybody had already been there maybe a year or 2 before me. But it was a very warm camaraderie between us, and every Sunday morning, time for Sunday school, remember that?
Yes.
And we'd meet down in the living room, and we'd have Sunday school, we'd talk to each other, and we'd discuss and have a class and so forth. Every girl was assigned, she and her roommate, that room was assigned to cook and to prepare the meals, was it for a week, if I remember?
Yes.
You had to prepare the meals for a week. We called her Miss Marsh.
Yeah.
I know you all know her as Duran, but we called her Miss Marsh. And she would be there to assist us and tell us what was good and what was not good and so forth. And the camaraderie really held us together. And then when I'm an AKA, we were the first ones. We established the sorority, and that group that made us a little, that was a little club that brought us together there. Even though the Deltas always wanted to compete with us. These 2 Deltas here.
Here's the AKA. I'm no longer outnumbered. Yeah, and the Alpha
office came on campus, and the campus too, right? Yeah.
You don't mind what you talk. KA side, yeah.
All right. You're on Kappa Alpha side. And there was a lot of camaraderie between us. And we would have dances. We would go out into Austin. And so that was a social group there. It's yours.
Thank you. That's one experience I'd like to share with you, and it's because of my basketball skills. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie Carbon Copy, where Denzel Washington plays a character who does not play basketball. So those about my skills. And I was going across campus one night, and these 4 white guys needed a 5th player. So they asked me if I would play. I said, yeah, I don't have anything to do. So we start the game, and I can't dribble. So they trapped me at mid-court. So the only thing to do is throw the ball at the basket, and it goes in. Now, I am hounded by 3 guys the rest of the game. We killed these guys. They thought I could play, and they hounded me all night long. So everybody can't play basketball. That was really funny.
Well, I think that Miss Marsh was like a second mother to all of us, and not just to the girls, but to the boys too. She thoughtfully looked out for us, and she was around to encourage us and comfort us. So that's about it, and that encompasses everything. So.
I can certainly speak as far as knowing Miss Marsh and how she was also a mother to the boys. Quite frankly, if there's any such thing as being predestinated or called or whatever term you want to use for a certain job, I believe that she was. As I understand it, she, in 1956, I was not here until 57, but beginning in 1956, and also the year of 1957, up through 58, the girls were not, black girls were not on campus at all. Okay, they lived off campus on I-35, and is that 12th Street? Okay, and so, and the fellas, you couldn't have a car as a freshman, okay? And so we had to, of course, those who lived on campus had to walk over to 12th, and that's right, at 35W, sometime we'd go on over to Houston-Tillotson and stop back by on the way, and that didn't exactly endear some of the girls to us. But Ms. Marsh was always just a mother to the fellows also. I think beginning in my second year, I was fortunate enough, and by the time Al Mitris was established, which I suppose was since 56, 57, 57, 58, they were off campus, so 59 must have been the first year of Al Mitris. And by that time, I was fortunate enough to have a little vehicle. And so sometimes I would take her shopping, and in return, I ate a lot of meals at the girls' dorm. Yes, I ate a lot of meals there. And as far as encouraging you, she got me a lot of dates because I would just call on the phone, and if I needed an answer, Ms. Marsh, okay, who's there that doesn't have a date? Okay, and that's how I called. The girls didn't know that. So as you can see, I had a pretty good time with you too, really. But all in all, I think that, and I was so delighted when this building was there. I would not have missed that if I had to walk here, because I don't think that there's a building here that is named after anyone who is more deserving than this. Not in terms of the finance that she was able to give, but because of what she did for this campus and this and so yeah, desegregating.
Almetris was indeed the gathering place, if you know that concept, but somehow I got elected to the intra-co-op council as the representative for Almetris. And that was an interesting experience. It did get my picture in the yearbook. I still have it. But one of the activities that the co-ops had was an open house. And I've told you already, I grew up in Austin. I had lots of mentors on the east side and so on. And so we wanted our co-op to be the most beautiful. So what do? I call my mentors. They strip their guest bedrooms of all of those beautiful bedspreads and pillows and throw rugs and whatever. And we decorated all of our rooms with their stuff. After the open house was over, of course, we had to return all of those things. But our dorm was recognized as being the most put together for that open
Someone mentioned earlier, I don't remember who it was, I think it may have been you, Mr. McKinney, a dorm D? What?
Yes.
What is that? What is... Share with us about that.
There was very limited, and I think I'm being very nice about this, housing for blacks at all. The women, as I mentioned, had no housing on campus at all. And so it was off campus at 12th and I-35. The fellows had two sets of dormitories, or sets of a residence, I suppose I should call it really. One was some little barracks down at the foot of San Jacinto and whatever street that is.
MLK.
Okay, MLK now.
19th Street.
Yes. These huts had been built, as I understand, for married students during World War II. Okay. One big open area would house about 4, I think, to wooden. I'm not even sure you could call that wood, but. And the other one was a couple of the wooden buildings. We could not live in the brick nice dormitories, period. And so, and one was called, there were several of those. I think they were lettered A up through about G. And 2 of them, Dorm D and Dorm F, were designated for black students. And so, as I described earlier, these were 2-story wooden frame buildings with community bath facilities, and I mean community all the way, face sink, the whole works, showers, okay, and so that was Dorm D and Dorm F, and that was it, and it was not until I was here in September of '57, so I stayed in that dorm through 58 and 58 to 59. I believe it was 1960 before we were, 1960 before we were permitted to live in the nicer brick dorms, air conditioning, the whole works. And we moved.
We were still separated completely.
Yes.
Within that section of it. We couldn't even go through that section.
Yeah, Brackenridge was the dormitory. Yeah, there was Brackenridge, and there was one section, yes, that was designated for blacks. And that was, and that was right across the street from the cafeteria that we still couldn't eat in that cafeteria for a while. But later, I think we did get to where we could eat in the cafeteria. I think that was also where the athletes, the athletes, the football players and all. So Dorm D, Dorm F, and the huts as they were called. That was the housing for black men here for the up through 59. It was 1960 before we got into the other dormitories. Cliff courts. Okay, that's what I was here. That's what I call it huts. Okay, and that was the one. There were probably about 8 or 10 of those, and like I said, frame, open. No, the only thing that was enclosed at all was the bathroom. Okay, everything else was just one big opening. You had cot beds.
Military barracks.
Yeah, military barracks. Yes, and you had, lower and upper level, a couple of sets of what I call, barrack-like bedding. Now, since I wasn't there, just help me, okay, some of those of you was there any were there any kind of window units or anything there?
No.
No. Okay. I want to be honest and truthful here. So okay, and this is Austin, and it does still get hot here. Yeah, absolutely none. And the summer, I went to summer school, and I did stay in Cliff Courts or the huts, yes, during the summer. So no air conditioning. Okay. That was it. So. Disappointment, yes, and that's nice. You wanted to really take matters into your own hand and do more than some of us did.
For the architect students, they were bungalows. So they were not a Caribbean style. They were bungalows, and the premium piece of appliance during the summer months on that stay there was one of those squirrel cage fans with straw, and so water went through it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Asbestos-sided bungalows with 4 students to each bungalow.
But there were some good things that came out of Dorm D. Walter Macdonald, we all remember Walter, wouldn't let anybody go hungry. And what Walter would do from time to time, he would go to Safeway and he'd get a jar of mayonnaise about this big and a can of potted meat. And he would stir that up, and that would be Go-Furthers. So everybody in Dorm D could eat that night. It's mainly mayonnaise, but there was some potted meat.
Well, in the anyone else on that?
No. I just want to comment on why I lived on the porch.
Okay.
I knew you guys were dying to know. There came a time when all of the regular rooms at Almetris Co-op were filled, and Mrs. Marsh was looking for little cubbies so she could accept more female students who were coming. And my roommate and I, Vivian, we volunteered to have the porch be our room. Now, the porch spanned the whole width of the building, so it was bigger than any of those rooms. It was a screened-in porch, and Mrs. Marsh had, I'll call them privacy screens, that we could put up for our privacy when we were doing what we do, and that we could take down to have a breeze. So when it was hot and humid in the summer, the porch always had a nice breeze. The negative aspect of living on the porch was there was this floor-to-ceiling sliding glass window that the adjacent room would close off in the wintertime to conserve their heat. You can imagine that our heat escaped through all of these cracks and things.
That was my room.
Yeah, that was your room. And once a friend was visiting on the porch, Barbara Horn Dunn, and she turned to go back through your room because that's the way we got off the porch, through her room and out her door.
To go down the hall.
And the window was down, and Barbara walked through that window.
I didn't live there.
Not a scratch on her, but I flew and called for the emergency number, and I guess they were nearby because they all rushed here. And Barbara just had glass slivers or whatever they are, shards, all over her, but she was not injured at all. And we were all so thankful for that. So that's the story of the porch.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for our elders, our tradition bearers? Yes, Brandy.
Hello. My name is Brandon Frankston. I graduated from here in 2007. I now work here. But my grandfather integrated Oklahoma State University athletics. And it's something that, while I'm very proud of, he doesn't really like to talk about a lot. So is this something, is it a legacy that you all embrace, or is it something that you only do in these types of settings, talk about in these types of settings?
I think that we embrace it. We started meeting unofficially several years ago, and we referred to ourselves as the old dudes. And it was a lot of reminiscing. The times don't seem to be as bad as time moves on. And we found it comforting to, I guess, massage each other's wounds that were inflicted years ago. And I think it became sort of medicinal for us psychologically. And as time went on, we thought, well, UT wasn't just males, so females were thought to be added by Carl Huntley, I believe. And Carl, incidentally, gave us our name, the Precursors. So we do, I think, embrace this pioneering type experience that we had. I think we're proud of it.
Actually, when I left this university, I never wanted to see it again. I had nothing to do with it. And when we made contributions, I made sure that my husband donated to the College of Education, not to business. After a while, when the football team desegregated, then I had a different attitude, somewhat. But what really did it was my daughter, when we lived in Maryland, decided that she wanted to come here to school because my husband had taken my son and daughter over this campus when they were little, and we lived nearby on a military post. They were so impressed and enamored with it. So since she was here, I had to deal with this university more so until I've sort of, and of course my forgiving nature, I decided that I could get involved here again, but I didn't like the idea of it for a long time.
I would probably describe my feelings or attitude toward the whole concept of this place as being love, hate, hot, cold. You know, I was poor. You know, I defied my mom. You know, I had to find work. So I didn't spend a lot of time on the campus except to sleep in Almetris, to go to my classes, and then I would get on that bus and get over to the east side where I worked for the Austin Recreation Department. I showed my children yesterday the bus stop on Rosewood Avenue, where I would wait on that bus at 10 o'clock at night to get me back to the university, and I'm thinking, I would never do that now. But for me, this was a means to an end. It was an expectation that I had to reach, and like Peggy, after that I was done. But I have to tell you also that when I went to get my master's degree at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, I had to go through all this stuff all over again. And I will tell you again that when I worked there the past 8 years, I was still going through this stuff on behalf of minority students, not just African American students, even white students who felt they weren't getting a fair shake. Somehow they always find me. And somehow I always think I can help to make it better. And so that is my focus. I'm hoping that one day I will feel the pride that other UT people feel. Bill Martin, who lives in Las Vegas and is very wealthy, and he's a big-time banker. I met him on some occasion at some political event, and he invited me to come to the UTX's group in Las Vegas. And I went just for Bill, really, because I needed that relationship that was about access to other kinds of things. And, you know, I prepared myself for this cold reception that I knew I would receive from these businessmen in Las Vegas with lots of money and resources of my generation, who probably still felt I never should have been here anyway. I never went back again.
Just one other comment about, I have, as Eva mentioned, really kind of an up and down feeling about UT. I have always been disappointed that UT was, particularly in my day before they started naming all of these other schools, the University of Texas at such and such a place, it was the state university. And so I felt like it should take the lead in doing a lot of things, including desegregation and integration. And yet, it seems as though SMU, Baylor, and nearly every other school in the Southwest, what was then the Southwest Conference, okay, had integrated its athletics before UT. It just seems that way. I hope you won't be surprised to know that, yeah, I went to the football games and to the stadium and everything, but let me tell you, when Oregon State, I believe it was, came here and Mel Renfro ran 200, I think had 254, but if that's not the right number, it was well over 200 yards, okay, of total yardage and everything. Okay, I wasn't clapping and hollering for UT. Okay, and University of Oklahoma, a guy named Prentice Gown, I believe it was came here, and yes, serious. So I just didn't think that it took the leadership role that it should have as being the state university in helping to bring about social, civil, and all of those other kind of justices. Now, on the other hand, yes, I take great pride in you know, I didn't have to do a whole lot of explaining and et cetera when I put down on that job application where I graduated. Okay, and so consequently, I think it certainly, if it didn't open some doors, it certainly kept me from being shut out of something. And so it's up and down. Yes, just the name itself. It is a great university. And the opportunities now that I have, I do encourage. In fact, there's a young fellow right here who's one of these, what you call the honors, the business, I think he's in business, I believe, but it's the honors program from my church, and he's a freshman here this year. And I talked to him and I explained to him that I'm still not sure that it is integrated. I helped to desegregate it, okay? But it has a world of opportunity, and if you can get there and manipulate your way around on this huge campus and take advantage of what it has to offer, okay, you will be, you know, prepared for about as well as you can be for life and for being having success in life. So it's up and down. I will admit that there were individuals on the staff and instructors and et cetera who I think did as much as they could to help to make it, you know, comfortable, acceptable. There were others who were not. But beyond the university, there was one other thing, one other consideration. Okay, this is the state capital. And you also have all of these politicians who were calling the shots and calling funding and et cetera. And so I think the university, I'm sure, perhaps some of the leadership could not take the positions that maybe they would have liked to have because of the power structure, the funding, and et cetera. But still, a university also should be one that challenges. So I can't totally forgive them there. So I have the up and down relationship, but I have not let that keep me from supporting and doing what I can for it and encouraging others to come, for it is a great university.
Well, we're so happy that you've all come back to share your stories. I have a question. Is there another question or this one? Okay.
I have that same up and down relationship with you too, so I can relate in part. But I just have to ask the Elmitress women, because we're going to see the Barbara Smith Conrad film in just a little while. Were you guys there in the dome when
Yes.
Harry Belafonte called?
When who?
Harry Belafonte.
No.
That was Eliza
I
D.
don't recall that.
That was Eliza. That had to be in 56, 57.
That was
56.
57.
I heard it in 59.
Oh,
Yes, so I don't think we have anyone who was there at that particular time in the dormitory when
You wanted to know about Harry, handsome Harry?
well,
Sorry.
in the Barbara Smith Conrad film.
Yes.
Yes, I know the story.
Right, and I just wondered if you guys were there and got to
I was
talk to him
not.
on phone too.
Barbara was here at the time that Peggy and I were here.
Yeah.
And she lived at Elmitress also?
She was my first roommate.
Oh.
Okay, I see a question over here. Sure.
I have a quick question,
Yeah.
and I know that some of the panelists did touch on this, but were any of you members of a sorority or fraternity? And if so, were you happen to be a charter member of that sorority?
Mrs. Hamilton, you were out of the room when we touched on it.
We have 2 deltas and 2 AKAs here.
All right.
And we were a charter member.
We were the first on campus, the Alpha Kappa Alpha Delta Xi chapter.
Okay, good.
And then came the deltas.
Our founder was was president of your sorority, and then she broke off and became our founding president. No, she led the group. She led the charge.
Questions? Any other questions?
Well-
And she was my home.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me put all of this in perspective. Okay. Yes, I am a charter member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And just to give you a little bit of the background and history of how all of this got started, okay? Briefly. When it got to the point of the first year or two, I mean, you just tried to survive, okay, and get through. But when it got to the point of establishing social organizations, either fraternities or sororities, the first one to actually be established was what was then called a colony, a social club, whatever, okay, was one called Alpha Upsilon Tau, okay, AUT, okay, and that was the colony that eventually evolved into the Epsilon Iota chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha. Now, we actually formed that in 58, the spring semester, and then came the fall semester of 1958. In December, we have 2 of us in here who were actually initiated into the fraternity, but we had to do it through the graduate chapter because there was no established chapter here on campus. Leon Holland sitting there, and I were 2, and Olis on. We have 3, and if I'm not missing anybody. Now, what happened in December 1958, we were initiated into the fraternity. Okay. Meanwhile, we had to satisfy all of these requirements on campus. You had to have a certain grade point average, and you had to do all of these things. And quite frankly, yes, the AKAs took care of their business, okay, and got everything in order before. So we actually were not chartered until April of 1960, but the AKAs came in sometime in 59, I believe it was, if I got it right. Okay, and so consequently, then later the Kappas, I think, came also, and so yes, much later. So yes, but we did have a colony, a social club. We actually participated in intramurals under that name. Okay, ran track, did all of those kind of things. And there are a lot of stories we can tell you about some of those intramurals that you would be interested in hearing. But just to share one with you, okay, quite frankly, the varsity was challenged on one occasion to run against those. They weren't all alpha interests. They were black, okay, to run against in the intramurals, the track team, and declined to do so. Okay, we were that good.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we started late, so we're going to run a little bit late. I want to try to get a couple more questions in. And so there was the lady up here. Oh, we'll go here, and then we'll go to you, sir. Okay, okay, let's do it like this. We're going to go here. That's okay. We'll go here, then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to the gentleman that stood up with the jacket, okay? And then please know that the precursors are here, so you'll be able to grab them after this event with questions. Okay, yes, sir.
Okay, I know that you said about how you feel about UT, and you said that you would have done the lesson. But for everyone, when you look back, do you think that you would have rather gone to HBCU because it would have been a little easier?
No.
Because what? Now, I wanted to be bathed in my culture. That's why I wanted to go to a historically black university. I wasn't looking for easy. I personally don't respond to easily. That's not my style, if you haven't picked up on it. But I already told you why I came here. Although it was not my preference, I treasure the experience. It's done now. I'm way beyond that time in my life.
And to answer your question, in 1946, Heman Sweatt was asked why did he want to attend the University of Texas. And quoting Heman Sweatt, he said he wanted an education, not a Negro education. So that's why he came, and I guess that's why most of us are here.
I just like to sum up my feelings by saying I came, whenever I start a task, I believe in finishing it. I was determined to stay here until I received my degree. I think it was an experience that strengthens the character of anyone who comes here. And I also believe that with having graduated from this university, you have the ability and emotional makeup to cope with just anything, anywhere.
The other comment that I would add to that is that, as Eva indicated, I was not looking for a place of ease, so to speak, to go through. Quite frankly, I was discouraged from coming here. I was walking around as a senior on my campus in high school, and one day my principal asked me as I was walking around, this is the last semester, a few days before, and he said, "Son, where are you going to school?" I said, "I think I'm going to UT." He said, "Son, why do you want to go there? They don't want you there." I said, "That's why I'm going." My parents, I told you, my parents were natives of Selma, Alabama, and I spent 9 school years there. I would come home to Houston. But I have always been attuned to this whole idea of social civil justice, just because of my parents, their backgrounds, the stories I've heard, and all of that, and the experiences. And so, consequently, I do not look for ease. I don't mind the challenges. All I want is to feel like that I have an equal opportunity. And then what I do with that opportunity is up to me. That's why, as a continuation from Bid Whiz, I am now a duplicate bridge player. I roam around and play in duplicate bridge tournaments, because in duplicate bridge, okay, it makes no difference about the cards you get, okay, in the real competition. You are compared with others, okay, and how well they do with those same cards playing the same hand. Now that's an equal opportunity. And then if I can think and communicate and strategize and do all of that to win, then or if I don't, at least I feel like that I had control and not someone else or something else.
Okay. I think if you had been on the campus during that time, you would have seen that with all the hard work that was going on among the students who were here, that they were not expecting it to be easy, and they were not seeking for the institution to make it easy for them. They wanted access. They wanted to be able to move about freely as all the other students, and that was the whole point of it. And I don't think we regret having gone through it. No, I proudly say I'm a hook 'em horns. And some students who attended all black colleges, like in Florida and so, the young students, I mean, not my age, and I'll do that, and they think I'm making a strange sign. But see, there is where I live in Fairfax, there are a number of people who graduated from University of Texas, and some who graduated from Oklahoma, and there's a big competition there, as you know. And so we always go head to head. So it was difficult. Yes, it was very difficult, but it has opened doors, just to say the name, that you graduated from the University of Texas, all over the country.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, just a quick question. When I first was looking for California a few years ago, there was a PhD person who wrote a book about UT, about the racism, about the president at the time that was making it difficult for black students. And I was wondering if any of you know who the author was and the name of that book.
I think
Dwana
Goldstone.
Yes.
Yes.
Integrating the 40 Acres, Dwana Goldstone. Oh, thank you.
And she is here.
Please stand, Dr. Goldstone.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh, no, it's behind you, sorry.
McKinney made a comment a moment ago that I hope the diversity group will follow through on. Last evening, Dr. Gordon said we have to see everything in context. There is a context of pre-1946 culture for the University of Texas. Would have been different if Dr. Homer P. Rainey had not been forced out. The legislators from East Texas, South Texas, rural legislators, all were against the movement of the University of Texas toward being a great university for Texas. And once he was forced out, and Dr. Holke, the man who succeeded him, anyway, decided that they were going to resist, the whole movement toward integration. And I hope the diversity will go back and look at that pre-history, because I think integration at the university would have taken a different course altogether if that had not happened. Faculty, the members of the faculty who did not have tenure and who expressed any kind of liberal attitude were just forced out of the university. In 1943, 1944, 1945. I came to Austin in 1947 and had the opportunity. There were some professors who were tenured, and one was J. Frank Dobie, who was one of the folklorists. I spent a lot of time with J. Frank Dobie, who told me that whole history of how the non-tenured faculty, and especially the younger members of the faculty who had come from the Ivy League schools, they were just forced out.
Mr. Interesting. There's one aspect of college campus life I think that we might, if I found it around in a day, that we might deal with is when a college student goes to a town, one of the things they look for is off-campus support. And oftentimes that's political, social, religious support. I think we all know what churches do that do some of the things we've done. But off-campus, remember, this is not always an all 100% black thing. We had some blacks who think like Clarence Thomas, and we had some blacks who think like Simon. I'm very happy to say that we can go out into the community and get support from people out there, such as one person here who's probably, I'm going to tell her, she's probably 90+ years old, but she was like an off-campus shrimp to us, and that's Miss Bertha Means and her husband, Dr. James Means. Now, we have to look for support from off-campus, so we go there and vent and talk, and they support us in many of the things we did when we had people like Urban, the Urban Center's name now.
Frank
Who
Urban,
once
yeah.
told us on campus, we don't have to have y'all people. I bet I'll report that anything. So to have community support, who are both political and socially and morally backing us is great. And I'd like to say thanks to Bertha for that. As I understand, and I was here with him, was the first varsity athlete on scholarship at the University of Texas who ran track and opened up track because it was, quote, a non-contact sport. So, thank you for all that good stuff. And I just wanted to let you know that's one aspect we had to cover. And politics is what guides us all.
Yeah.
I would like to say just one thing in conjunction with what Dr. Curtin said, because I found this so puzzling. The person that gave, the faculty member that gave me the most trouble was, and most uncooperative, is a person that is so very well and highly revered in this community, in this school, and all in the area. And he has just since died. He was alive when we came back here. But I find that so puzzling that someone learned like that.
I think there's one name that definitely has to be mentioned, which is Booker T. Bonner. I met Booker T. Bonner when I got out of the Army, and he was very active in attempting to integrate not just the campus area, but the state of Texas. So without mentioning Booker T. Bonner, took me all over the state. Probably should have been in Austin, but we were going to Corpus Christi, wherever Democratic meetings were held. So Booker T. Bonner had a tremendous impact on my attitude today toward activism in politics. So I think we should give a hand to that man. For me,
Ms. I would just like to say, politics, yes, it's so important because it is politics that was responsible for my son being the first black member of athletics in the Southwest Conference. In addition, my son was a student at Boston High School, and he said, "Mother, I don't want to go. He had gotten scholarships from various universities, California, etc. And he said, I don't want to leave Austin, but I want to continue to run track. And athletics is segregated. And I said, well, I'll see about that. Then I called. John Conley had just become governor of Texas. At that time, we had liberal Democrats and conservative Democrats. So I said, I'll call Frank Hurd, who had just become, had been appointed to the Board of Regents by John Conley. And I told him about my son wanting to go to the and they were going to separate. He said, they're not. He argued back and forth. They are. They're not. They are. I mean, really. Then he wanted to know if I knew. I'm not going to call the name of the person because I could have something negative to say. So he called this person and wanted to know if I knew this person who was a conservative. And I said, oh, yes. Knowing the family, we're all friends. Now, then he got busy. Now, if I had not told him that I knew, because he assumed that I was conservative. So he said, well, I'm going to call. After we back and forth, not is, he said, give me a week, and I'm going to investigate. And he did. He called me back the next Saturday, and he said, this is me, really right. I said, I knew I was right. And so that was the reason that my son James became the first to be entering the entire Southwest Conference. Then let me tell you about my daughter Janet, who was with the first 8 days. Janet Scott. Willie Scott. So she, a few months later, she called me and said, Mother, we need a sorority house at the university. And what you call it? A sorority. He's done all this for James and blah, blah, blah. And so I did. So I had a conference with Mr. And so he wasn't very favorable toward helping us because someone had told him that I had voted against his. That is what's going on. Now that's the way it is. You have to learn how to.
You got it, Mama.
Thank you. Everyone, please join me in giving our precursors who shared their stories a very warm